Hey everybody, Sue's here from Revelation Quilts. Do you have a ton of scraps? Like I have a ton of 5-inch square scraps, which is how I cut my scraps. And so I'm going to show you what we can make with these, and you will be so surprised at the results. So let's get started right now. Now, if you're like me, you have a ton of scraps, and I have a ton of 5-inch squares that are scrappy. And this is a pretty big pile, but I have 2 more piles that are also this big. So I am determined to use them. So I think I've come up with an idea to make a block. And this is the block that we are going to make. It is very, very easy, and it will use up these 5-inch scraps. Now, if you're wondering why I have 5-inch square scraps, I will point you to this video here that shows how I organize my scraps. But for each block you're going to make, you will need 6 5-inch squares, which is why I like it, because it uses up those 5-inch squares. So we'll need 2 light and 1 dark that will go together. And then also we'll need 1 light and 2 darks that will also go together. So all 6 of these 5-inch squares will make 1 block. I love that. So let's get started. I'll show you how to put this together. For the 2 pieces, the 2 5-inch squares that are light, we are going to cut these at a diagonal, and we're basically going to make 2 pieces that are a square in a square. So I'm going to cut those up, and those will go with this one. And I'm going to do the same with these dark ones that are going to go with the light. I'm just going to stack these 2 on top of each other and cut that at a diagonal as well. Now, when I picked my squares for this, I paid 0 attention to the colors that are going together, but I did make sure there was a good contrast between the lights and the darks. I'll show you how we're going to sew them together. My first step is I'm going to fold these in half and press them so I know where the center is of these. You can either do that with your iron, which I usually do, or you can finger press them or use your roller or whatever you do. And then I'll do the same with my square. I want to find the center points for each one. And like I said, I usually use my iron, but this works just as well. Just make sure you get a nice crease in there. And then I'm going to take 2 of these, and I'm going to sew 1 to the top using a 1/4-inch seam allowance. I'm going to sew 1 to the bottom, also using a 1/4-inch seam allowance, matching up where I've creased them. I'm going to put 1 seam here and 1 seam here. So let me go do that, and I'll be right back. All right, I've got these sewn on and pressed back. I pressed them away from the center square. And now I'm going to do the exact same thing with these other 2. I'm just going to put them on here. And now, since these are cut into triangles, they're cut on the bias. So as you can see how stretchy that is. So when we lay these on here, we just want to lay them on. Don't stretch them, don't pull them. And as you're going through your machine, just let the machine do the work and pull it through. I don't stretch it, I don't hold it, I don't do anything like that. I just let the machine do the work and pull it right through. So now I'm going to sew these 2 on, just like that. And then we will have our first square in a square. And here we go. I've got my first square in a square, and because it's black, all the fuzz will show on it. So now we're going to do the exact same thing with this one. Now here's a little tip that I've learned, is that for your center square like this, it's okay to have a directional fabric. And by directional, I really mean a stripe. It's okay for this. But for these corners, it just doesn't work out very well if you've got a stripe, because some stripes go this way, some stripes go this way, and it just ends up looking a little funky. But if you don't mind that, you can definitely do that. So we're going to do the same thing with this one, and then we will have two, but they will be opposite. So let me go sew this one up like I showed you with this, and we'll be all set to go to the next step. All right, so just like that, I've got two of them. So the next step is also very easy. We're going to trim these down to 7 inches. And I'm using my, I think it's an 8.5 inch square ruler. And I've put this painter's tape here at just under the 3.5 inch line, just to help me center it. So I'm going to take my 3.5 inch line going vertically, and I'm going to line it up with these corners here, and I'm going to move it down until these side corners just hit just above that tape. And not all of them are going to be perfect, but this is very forgiving. So we're just going to trim this to 7 inches. And then we'll turn it around and do the other two sides. But now I can line it up right along my 7 inch line here. Still making sure that that 3.5 line is right there. I almost made that mistake. Okay, and then we'll trim these to, again, 7 inches on both sides. We'll trim them both to 7 inches. So that is what your little square and a square block will look like. Let's just trim this one real quick. And it's just so easy. So this one's a little wonky. See how the corner sticks up more here than it does here? And that's okay. I'm not gonna worry about that. I could have stretched it a little when I sewed it. I'm not worried. It's still gonna look just like it's supposed to. And that's the thing about these scrap patterns like this. They're pretty forgiving, and you can just make it exactly how it's supposed to be with no big deal. It's no big deal. Make sure I got that measurement right. Now I double check just to make sure everything's cool. Okay, so these are both now 7 inches. So the next step is real easy. I'm just going to stack them on top of each other, just like this. And then I'm going to take my ruler again, and I want to make 3 cuts here. Now, since this is 7 inches wide, I want 4 equal slices. So each slice needs to be 1 3/4 inches wide. Wide. So I can make 3 equal cuts and have 4 equal pieces. So there's 1, and then 2 should go pretty close to the center of your block. And then the final one is right here. And I should have 4 equal cuts. Make sure your blade is nice and sharp because you're going through some seams here. Now the next step is just to line these up. Now I always start with the light background here. When I line these up, I'm just going to alternate the light and the dark like this. But I always start with the light background one for continuity. Look at this. How cute is that? So when you put these together, when you sew them together, they're going to create this amazing optical illusion. I can't wait to show you this. It just tricks your eye. So I'm just going to sew these together just like this. I'm going to stack them like this, take them to my sewing machine. And when you sew them together with a 1/4 inch seam, make sure all of your seam allowances go away from the first block. So I'm going to put all my seam allowances going that way. Let's get these sewn up and see what this block looks like. All right, I've got my block all done. That is so cute. Actually, it should go this way because I started with the light background. So the next thing we're going to do, and you might even be able to see the optical illusion this creates with just the one block. But I'm going to trim this down. So I'm going to turn it this way. And I am lucky enough to have a big old 10.5-inch ruler. I'm going to trim this down to 6.5 inches wide. It should already be about 10 and 10-ish inches long. But I'm going to put these corners that stick out at the top and the bottom, I'm going to put my 3.25 inch lines. I'm going to line those up right along there, and I'm just going to trim this to 6.5 inches wide. And then I'll turn it back this way, and I'll line up my 6.5 inch line right along this edge here, and then trim off this side. So it'll be, again, 6.5 inches wide. Just like that. Look how cute that is. Let me get all these weird little threads off of here. This is a great block. So when we put these up on our design wall, well, let me just show you this amazing optical illusion that this creates. All right, so I've got all of my blocks made, and look at this secondary design that this ends up with these diamonds. There are no diamond strips in this at all, but just because of the way we place the black and the dark and the light fabrics together, it creates this awesome secondary pattern. I'm going to call this faux diamonds because I didn't know this would happen, and so I'm pleasantly surprised at the way this turned out. Now, these are just laying up here. They're not sewn together yet. The blocks are not square, of course. They are rectangle, but you get to decide which way you want your stripes to go, if you want them to go horizontal or if you want them to go vertical. And the effect is the same. It just really, it depends on your preference and your taste. Now, the way I've got this laid out is that the first column starts with the light background at the top, and then the next one is dark. So here's a light background, here's the dark background, and then I just alternated the lights and darks and lights and darks so that when we sew these columns together, the seam allowances are going to nest because we have sewn all of the seam allowances going in the same direction, starting with the light strip and going down. So when we turn every other block around like that, that is going to allow all of our seams to nest. So every little seam is going to nest. And then with however, if you sew them together in rows or columns, whichever way you go, just alternate the way you press the seam on each row or column. That way, when you sew when you sew them all together, the big rows together, then those seams will nest as well. So I'm going to get busy sewing this together. I'm super excited about this. I've got my stripes going horizontal. I actually took a poll in the Quilt Guild, and that the majority of the answers were horizontal, so that's why I chose this way. And then I've got 9 blocks across, and I've got 6, I think, yes, 6 blocks down. So 9 times 6 is 54, and if you take 54 times 6, so 54 times 6 is 324. So I used up 324 of my 5-inch squares, which makes me pretty happy, but I still have 3 huge piles. So that just means I have a ton of 5-inch squares. So my brain is working. My next video will be another way to use 5-inch scrap squares. If you like my t-shirt, I'm going to put a link in the description box below where you can go to my t-shirt store, and it's full of creative and quilty t-shirts, and they are on sale a lot, and they're really good quality t-shirts. They wash up so nice. They don't peel like a lot of t-shirts do. These are nicely done. So check that out if you get a chance. So let me get busy sewing these together. I can't wait to see how it turns out. All right, so I have everything sewn together. I think it looks pretty awesome. I love the fact that this diamond effect takes over and there are no diagonal strips in this quilt, but your eyes see it. And that is so cool in my opinion. Couple tips I learned while sewing this together: whether your stripes are going horizontal or vertical, either way, sew those together first. So I sewed my blocks together this way first so I could match up my seam allowances on the stripes. That made a huge difference. When you get to the middle of a block, the seam is a little thick, so just go slow. It's not a race or anything, so just go slow. I took my time and I had no problem going through any of the seams. Even though they're nested, in the middle here, they can get a little thick, so just take your time and be careful with that. So once you have all your blocks sewn together this way, whichever way your stripes are going, then you can sew your rows together. It's super easy. Just in every other row, press your seam allowance the opposite way. So in this row, it's going to the right. In this row, it's going to the left. So when I sew my rows together, everything nests and it's all beautiful and unicorns and bunny rabbits and things like that. So I love this. I'm going to call it Faux Diamonds. I haven't decided on a border yet. I'm going to let the quilt tell me whether it wants a border. I kind of feel like I'm going to have a border on it, but I'm not sure. And if I do put a border on it, it's going to be a solid border. One of the kind of tricks that I use to see if I like a border on it is I'll take a picture of this with my phone or whatever you use to take pictures, and then put it into a program like Canva or something like that, and then just put a box behind it, like a black box behind it or something like that, or whatever color you want, and that way you can tell whether you'd like a border on it. So use some like a paint program or some drawing program or graphic design program on your computer if you're computer literate. It's actually quite easy to do. So I do that sometimes to see whether a border is a good idea or not a good idea for this. But I love this quilt. The quilt measures 54 by 61. The way I did it with no borders, like I said, I have 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 across, and I have 6 rows down. And because the blocks aren't square, they are rectangle, you don't need as many columns going down as you do across. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. My next video will also be a way to use up your scrap 5-inch squares. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I've already got something in the works. So thank you again to all of my members. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this channel. I really, really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, join the Facebook group, the Revelation Quilts Guild on Facebook, if you are on Facebook. If you're looking for more ideas using 5-inch squares, check out this playlist I have for using charm packs. This should give you some great ideas. Thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.